Listen, someone else who's been very, very busy over the last couple of weeks making a must-see documentary is, of course, our great friend and colleague here at Sky, Peta Credlin. Now, guys, while you've been in the States, Sky here has been buzzing, literally buzzing, with the excitement around Deadly Decisions, which is Peta Credlin's doco, screening tonight at 8 p.m. And I'm delighted to say Peter's going to give us a quick sneak preview now. Peta Credlin, how are you? Lovely to see you.
Great to be with you, and I'm loving the coverage out of the States from our two outsiders. We're getting sort of the real Trump deal out of the US for a change.
Fantastic, exactly. And some great vox pops there and some terrific discussions with the locals, which has been great. Peta, tell us about Deadly Decisions. It's the big story. You've been doing terrific work in the Hotel Quarantine, in the press conferences there with Dan Andrews. You've exposed a lot of things. Tell us a little bit about what led to the doco and what we should be looking forward to seeing tonight.
So, as always, Rowan, it's not the crime but the cover-up, right? So we know decisions were made in government back in March for Victoria to go it alone, to reject police and the military personnel in terms of running hotel quarantine security. We know what happened. We know the result because it genomically linked. The breakdown in hotel quarantine led to Victoria's second wave, and we're talking about over 800 dead, and the economy in the state is absolutely decimated. I apply a discount factor to bad government decisions. You expect mistakes to be made. I'm not surprised by stuff that goes wrong, particularly in bad state Labor governments. But what I'm really disappointed to have this sense of concern that the inquiry that's meant to find truth is not going about it in a way that I think is going to give us the answers we deserve as Victorians and as Australians, because I have to say 40% of the nation's unemployed now are in Victoria. So everybody's bearing the cost, Rowan, of what went wrong. And federal taxpayers are propping up Daniel Andrews at the moment for all the things he won't admit to and own up to. And watching that inquiry, all those hearings, 25 days of hearings with the I don't knows and I can't remembers, and all of these witnesses, mate, that should have been called. Now, I have two big whistleblowers on the program tonight who ran the hottest of the hot hotels. They put in submissions to the Coate Inquiry. One in particular put 500 pages of legal documentation. Well, that was never, it was received by the inquiry, but never formally tendered in evidence and never made public. You've got to wonder why. And also, he wasn't called to give evidence, nor was another whistleblower, nor was the bloke who ran Unified Security, the mob that gets a $30 million contract in under 6 hours on the back of a couple of text messages. He never appeared in the witness stand. And so I've got to ask, as a lawyer, I ask, why? Rita. Why doesn't the inquiry look like it's looking for the truth, finding the truth?
Rita.
And recalled. If it wasn't for you, Peter, the inquiry wouldn't have even recalled anybody or sought those phone records, which led to Victoria's top bureaucrats stepping down. But with that pressure you've applied, do you think the inquiry is now going to actually do its job to pursue the truth and uncover what happened? Because that's what's been really shocking to me and a lot of other people, is just how this inquiry seems to have just gone through the motions with very little interest in actually fulfilling its duty.
And you're spot on, Rita. This is where my concern is. Is it going to be a truth-telling inquiry or is it going to be a whitewash? We know there's an interim report due out on Friday, all designed to give Daniel Andrews the cover. This is the things you need to fix in order to reopen Victoria's international borders. We can't go to Sydney. This is a government in Victoria so desperate for foreign students' cash, it wants to bring back foreign students by the end of the year. Now, I'm not confident they know even half of what they got wrong. So how can they go down this path of saying we've fixed quarantine? Contact tracing in Victoria is appalling. And the final report, which should have, heads rolling for ministers and bureaucrats, that's not there until the end of the year, to the 21st of December, and it'll slide into Christmas. And I get that people want to move on, right? I get Victorians are desperate to move on. But unless this inquiry holds power to account, And it's got to stop with the written statements and affidavits, right? They're just Q&As written by lawyers, signed by the clients. They must put everybody back in the witness stand. Jenny Makakos, who says you can't trust the Premier's testimony. Jenny Makakos needs to go in the stand. The Premier needs to go back in the stand. All of this must happen now. And all of these whistleblowers and people who say to me, I'm talking to you, Peta Credlin, because I'm telling you what I wanted to tell the Coate Inquiry, but they never called me. All of that has got to be there, and it's got to be there publicly, and we've got to scrutinise what happened.
James?
Peta, we've all been really, I think, amazed and frankly grateful for the way that once you started to apply the wood at those press conferences, that things started to come out, that things started to change, and we all started to see that Praetorian Guard that was around the Andrews government start to crumble. But are you disappointed that in a democratic society, and I come at this from somebody who does not live in Victoria and frankly struggles to understand the mentality of an awful lot of people in Victoria who keep sticking up for Dan Andrews. Are you disappointed in the way that many in the media, especially the ABC and elsewhere, have basically run cover and tried to explain away all of these faults rather than doing their job of holding them to account in the first place?
I think what it's exposed for Victorians who perhaps didn't understand how Machiavellian, if I can say that, the political strategy of Andrews is, and also brutally effective. You know, it runs in concert with the hard left and a lot of unions who have this I stand with Dan push on trolls and the use of social media. I mean, the bloke has almost 1 million followers, Daniel Andrews, on Facebook, paid for with a lot of advertising from taxpayer funds that you can't do in a federal sense. So the machine behind Andrews is incredibly powerful, but I think Victorians, through the conduct of this year and all the things that went wrong, are starting to understand that. I'll give you a little statistic. When they looked at bringing the army in June, when it had all gone to hell in a handcart, remember, Victoria was getting 850 troops, and then the next day they changed their mind and reversed the order, and the troops never came. We had 20 dead on that day in Victoria, 20 dead. We ended up with over 800 dead. And you've got to say, if the army had come, those 850 troops, which the Defence Minister said were on their way, until Daniel Andrews reversed that order, things would have been very, very different for a lot of families this Christmas time. So this stuff must come out, and the lawyer in me wants to see that if politics is crook, that at least our justice system finds the truth. This will be the real test.
Well, Peta Credlin, Deadly Decisions tonight at 8 p.m. here on Sky. Must-watch TV. Deadly Decisions sounds like an Ian Fleming film to me. We had the sad news.
How sad was that?
Exactly. Who was your favourite Bond? Was it Sean Connery, who died today?
I like the early Connerys. You know, I love, you know, Dr. No, Russia with Love, all of those ones. And I do like Daniel Craig, I have to say.
A couple of votes there for Daniel Craig. Well, tonight on Sky News, Deadly Decisions with Peta Credlin, uncovering the inner secrets of Victoria's disastrous response to the coronavirus crisis. Thanks so much, Peta, and great luck tonight.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be watching Glass of Shardy at the ready. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thanks, team. Bye, outsiders.